Are you depressed today, mother?
I don't know about you, but I was never really good at telling stories. So today I'm going to tell you a story about how some guys that I used to be friends with screwed me over really big time, but at the end of the day, they got the karma that they deserve. On top of that, this is also kind of a behind the scenes of this commercial that I made for NJ Sound, the studio that I work at. You can find links in the description below for the entire commercial. Back in the good old days of 2013, I can't fucking say 13, leave me alone. I had a conversation with one of my old homeboys, and the conversation ended up with him leading to telling me that he would open up a studio in Mamax Studios. Mamax Studios is basically this place that used to be a factory, but now it's just a bunch of rooms that's rented out. You could be as smart as these guys and rent out a 20 by 20 cold ass room without any running water for the same price as a studio apartment. And basically him and a few other friends of mine for photography, music, and video producing, while still not having running water. And so at the time I was thinking, I love dog, but you know what I also love? I also love producing music as well because I actually know how to audio engineer. And so because I was very desperate for money and my parents thought I was going to college for something useful, so they were hoping that I would make millions of dollars off of my career, I ended up offering my services in return to just be part of the group just because I was a lonely piece of dog. And aside from that, for some odd reason, I thought they were gonna actually make it. As the days passed by, I ended up bringing a lot of my equipment, my laptop, my piano, and a bunch of other stuff that I could use for the studio that most of these guys clearly didn't even have access to, which should have been my first red flag. I ended up wondering how we're gonna record drums because I know a lot of metal bands that would like to record in a studio, but they really don't want to go that far for a studio or spend thousands of dollars. And one of the things that hit me weird was that we have no way of recording drums. So on top of the fact that we don't have any music editing software besides Ableton Live Lite, the free version, and there's barely any way to record music besides one vocal booth, I was coming up with a conclusion that this studio was going to be meant for talentless rappers versus musicians. So because I was a stubborn retard and I kept wanting to stick with these guys because they were so-called my friends, I ended up arguing the point that maybe we should invest in like an electronic drum kit so we could record drums. And quite possibly we could record guitar and bass somewhere else or make some space for the amplifier. And I remember this one particular day when I brought this up because I wouldn't give up the idea of the electronic drum kit. My grandma was sick and in the hospital and I went to go visit. Because nobody else had the free time to go hang out with grandma, I decided to stay for a while. And while I was texting some of these guys about the drum set, one of them just exploded and started arguing with me about it, telling me how talentless I am and how I'm a useless musician. And he was threatening to throw out all of my expensive equipment if I didn't go that moment to pick it up. While my grandma was in the hospital, by the way. And so luckily, one of my cousins came through and decided to visit, and I told him to hang out with grandma while I went to pick this shit up. At the end of the day, I grabbed my stuff and I went back home. And that was pretty much the end of that. Now, if you're wondering what happened to them, they ended up losing the studio because they were paying too much money just to have people go in there and smoke. There would be nothing produced from that studio. It was just a waste of money, and they ended up realizing that, and they just gave up. 2 years go by, and they ended up getting in contact with John Cannon, the owner of NJ Sound. Ironically, he taught at the same school that I went to for college. And while all but one of these guys ended up doing nothing with their musical careers, I ended up working in a studio that people wish they recorded at. And if you're wondering what it's like to record a commercial, it's a lot of these. That is the face of an angry musician that really doesn't want to lose his shit right now. So pretty much this is how it went. I got all my stuff packed up, my guitar, my really expensive amp, and this case that I had to buy just for this commercial, on top of all of my camera equipment and my pedal board.
Today is going to be very interesting because this is the behind the scenes of recording the commercial for NJ Sound. This is going to be great.
So just like when it comes to recording my songs for my own personal albums, the first thing I start working on is the guitars. And trust me, no matter how many times you practice, you're always going to feel like you're making a mistake, so you got to do like 20,000 takes. I hate this so much. Exactly. I could only imagine the guitar solo. And when it comes to recording any of my solos, it usually takes the longest amount of time. It's very rare that I write them beforehand. I never write them beforehand. I do it on the spot. And trust me, if the guitar takes 20,000 takes, then the solo takes 80,000. You guys ever understand what it's like to write a song? Solos are usually the most annoying because you always think they come out bad. And you guessed it, some more of these. And if you think that's bad, wait till the G string goes out of tune out of the blue. I remember one of my teachers told me this was a good idea. Who told me this was a good idea? I want to slap him in the face. It's time for bass. Okay, so aside from me showing off, in all seriousness, bass actually is the easiest one for me. Mainly because by the time I finally feel satisfied about my guitar parts, I already know the rhythm by heart, so the bass guitar just has to play the rhythm. However, when it comes to me, I like to make sure that the bass part has its own melody, meaning that on top of backing up the rhythm guitar, it also has its own licks. Now we get to the most annoying part of any engineer's life. Ho-ho. So we just finished setting up drums on the mic for the drums. And trust me, if you're not having an insecure partner who just wants to argue every day with time consuming, just wait till you start miking up drums. I'm not even gonna fret. This is the most annoying and painful shit I've ever done in my life, and I never want to do it again. Trust me, it took me about 11 takes for us to actually decide which take we wanted for the drums. And since I haven't played drums this much since like 6 years ago, it was very painful.
What?
Bro, the line, bro.
Oh.
Okay, ready? What do you think?
What? I think it needs more cowbell.
Yo.
That's what?
Well, honestly, I'm just glad that we finally implemented an electronic drum kit since 2013, since I talked about it with these other hoes. And pairing that up with Superior Drummer was the best thing I've ever done in my life. I never have to suffer 20,000 hours of trying to get drum mics set up.
We went to fix the studio up, and this is his first time looking at the studio. What's your reaction to the studio?
Great, fantastic.
He wishes he had this when he was younger.
Yes.
Like I said, from rags to riches, I went from begging people to let me in their studio to working in the studio people dreamed they had.